Wanderer, the ultimate hippie trail journey, is a great read and a hell of a lot of fun. Check it out. Follow the journey and our route on our website at wandererbook.com. Welcome to week 36. We start out Sunday morning in the Sheshnag Lake to the ultimate beauty of this incredible scenery. Then we make our way back during the day on that Sunday, all the way to Pahalgam, and then get back to our tent. After trudging our way back to Pahalgam from our campsite, we make our way to Jammu, having some interesting adventures on the way, and then ultimately get to Dharamshala, which is basically at the threshold of the Dalai Lama who lived in Upper Dharamshala. Let's talk about the particulars. June 1971, Sunday, Sheshnag, the Himalayas. This morning I wake up to glorious sunshine and the incredible beauty of this mountain-surrounded, frigid green lake. Water seems to pour into the lake everywhere. Many of the mountains we have seen have snow on them. There are sheep down by the lake, and the shepherds are sitting around me as I write. Beautiful trip, but it kicked my ass uphill 18 miles. I was bitching like crazy. I sketched drawings in my journal on the mountains and river. What a place. I've just been grooving for a few hours and think about the long journey back through Wonderland. It is Sunday and we go continuously downhill for 5,000 feet. And as we go down, my physical condition unbelievably falls also. Quite incredible considering the bad shape I'm in when we start the journey back from Sheshnag to Pahalgam and to our campsite. My heels ache from the start of the trek. Wearing open rubber sandals the whole trip, the pain worsens with cracking. The ache in my groin, which starts up on the way up, also continues to get worse on the final leg, and my ankle starts to give out. Now you must know the only guide we have to assure we're on the correct path to Sheshnag is a series of white paint marks on rocks placed for the heavily traveled pilgrimage to the Amarnath cave in late July. These marks are the same marks we're looking for on the way back, and they are not always clear. It's intermittent, and it makes for much uncertainty as to whether we are on the correct path in this rugged mountainous area. We finally arrive at Shandywith about 5 p.m. and eat a bit from the tent restaurateurs. Then, after coming all the way down that huge mountain from Sheshnag, the incredible scenery, we set off for the final 10 miles to get back to our campsite. And when we're just a mile down that road from Shandywith, guess what happens? Dick's feet give out and he's screaming and crying and saying he can't go forward. And I say, Dick, we got to. Before we leave Sheshnag Lake, let's just take a quick look at the environments. We're in an incredible location. The mountains still snowy. The water emerald green. Looking in all directions, only to see beauty every once in a while. A shepherd or a local person would go by. Pristine beauty, and yet, at the end of July, we can expect 20,000 people to be marching their way towards the Amarnath cave right at this lake. When we get close to Pahalgam, we stop to eat smoke with two French-speaking freaks and a guru-type Hindu sadhu who lives under the roof near the Gold Temple on the outskirts of town. We're so beat out, it's absurd. We get to town, eat a bit more, and shop, then we literally hobble back to our tent campsite in the black of night. I'm in so much pain that the bitching and complaining is fluent, but it is an experience worth any pain. To be up with huge peaks and waterfalls pouring down the stark faces of huge mountains into the raging river below. It is enough. That river itself is so often a raging, falling beast, it simply knocks me out. On our way back from Sheshnag, we see a granite edifice that we saw on the way to the lake. Now, even though we thought no one could ever traverse it, we see a local shepherd bebop across the stark rock like it is nothing, with a walking stick and curly-toed mountain shoes. Although this area seems like it's mostly inhabited by no one, the locals are here and they find their way. Several times we see a man with a horse or a donkey, but much of the way is quite precipitous, and in several spots the streams dripping down the mountains form icy spots on narrow paths, downright scary, as a slip could make a fall 1,000 feet down to the rocks and river. We wake up the next day, it's Monday, and we have a wonderful day to spend near our river campsite. But it's time to leave this area because we rented the tent for only 1 week. So we make a long trudge to town. Roger carries the tent of very heavy canvas and heavy wooden supports. Somehow I carry my bag and Roger's all the way to the town. We board a bus for the main road from Srinagar. The pain in my ankle is astounding as we walk. It is a very beautiful week in Pahalgam, one of the most beautiful weeks of my life, and the trek, needless to say, will never be forgotten. But just to sit and cook by the raging river with the green wooded mountains all around was certainly enough. Route now is to try to get to a place called Dharamshala, where we've heard the Dalai Lama is living, and there are Buddhists, Tibetan Buddhists, and we wanted to visit that culture. So we headed off, and after getting to the main road, we make an effort at hitchhiking, and we don't get very far, but we're invited to sleep with some locals in a small, invisible type town. They were very nice folks, but I was bitchy because it involved walking on my poor ankle. They feed us, and we go to bed on the floor with a lot of locals. My lice, I now believe I have lice. I've seen these little critters going back and forth on my body, and they are bad. I take a bath with a bucket in a small bathroom downstairs. The bugs are incredible. As we sleep on the floor, they make noise. The tiny insects buzz high tones in my ears. Big flies really get into it, and bigger cockroaches clomp on the floor. I can hardly sleep. I've had the shits lately, and in the midst of the night, I make a break for the toilet with a candle, as there are many people sleeping in our midst on the floor. I can only find the small washroom, not a toilet, and in a panic, I splatter my poop in a corner of the washroom. The wall is covered in much of the floor. There's only a little water left from my bath, not enough to clean up my poop. I try to get outside for more water, but I can't do it. Each door seems to be locked. Yuck. Regrettably, I leave my mess behind, and our hosts take us to the road. We try to get a ride. We get one ride all the way to Jammu City, and it was supposed to be just a few kilometers, but it took a whole day. It was a very rigorous ride on thick wood with many shakes from the road, with beautiful scenery though my trek took a bit away from it because it was just too much being out there. Tomorrow, it's the Kangra Valley, and this is where we're told the Tibetan Buddhists are living. But first, we have the town of Jammu, and Roger found some English teacher we're supposed to meet. What a pain in the butt. And although we're out of the high mountains in Jammu, we're in a place that is a hill town, would you say? It's part of the mountains. It's not like there's no mountains there. And it is beautiful and a lovely little hilly place, but not in those high mountains. We spend our night And then it's time for us to try to make our way from this rather Indian city to the next town that is supposed to be filled with Tibetan Buddhists. Jammu is an experience, but it's time to move on to what we're here for, the big stuff, the Tibetans. Jammu and the next town called Patankot that we've been in before, these are real India. It's a heavy trip, a funky place. I'm now sitting in a train station near the showers in the third-class waiting room. It's a train to Kangra Valley that we plan to get on at 2:30 a.m. We had a far-out bus ride here, but now it's time for a train, hopefully. I buy myself a pair of striped Indian pajama-style trousers. They're very thin and comfortable, and a more difficult-to-use side-blown flute, not a recorder-type blown one like I have been using. What a funky town this is. Dick and I had to go off, and we see the place, and it's very fantastic. We are called into a few places by locals. We're grooving around, and we're having a ball. The train station is really heavy. People are laying about everywhere. Old women wash their butts right in front of me. Appallingly honest. There are so many bugs here, it's beyond imagination. I saw the biggest ant of my life. So much happens, my head reels. The bus ride here was rather painful, yet an incredible trip just to be in this fantastic land. Dick and I had a really dumb argument today in a bank. Roger and I had an argument last night. With the heat, it gets a bit thick sometimes. I mean, these are not my lifelong friends. It's getting a little short. I am now in a little hill town in the Himachal Pradesh. A new state. I went from Kashmir to the Himachal Pradesh. I come upon a man frying cakes of just plain potatoes on the street. I always love potatoes, and I am quite excited, so I order one up. The vendor serves the potatoes on a small plate, but just before he hands it to me, the prize potato, in a flash, he pours 3 sauces, boom, 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 just as he and all the other locals want them. It took me several tries to convince him that I wanted mine plain, and finally, it was delicious. While in Lower Dharamshala, I meet a Tibetan at our hotel. He asks me if he can play on my flute that I wear around my neck. He takes it and starts to blow and play a beautiful melody, which seems to go on, and we watch him as he points to his neck and shows us that he is not taking a breath. He seems to be able to play for minutes at a time without taking a breath. His neck seems to willow, but there's still no sign of actual breathing. Just another incredible sight here in this wonderful land. Dharamshala is a city in the Indian state of Himachal Pradesh, surrounded by cedar forest on the edge of the Himalayas. This hillside city is home to the Dalai Lama, well, not really quite because it's upper Dharamshala, and the Tibetan government in exile. The Chinchin Choling Temple Complex is a spiritual center for Tibetan Buddhism, while the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives houses thousands of precious manuscripts. Next week is week 37, and it's basically made up of our wonderful time in upper Dharamshala called MacLeod Gunj, where the Dalai Lama and his Tibetan monks live, and there's a whole Tibetan community, more and more Tibetan. And then finally we leave off to a town, because we can't stay forever, to a town called Mandi, down back into the real India, where we get ready to make our way down into Delhi and the rest of India. See you then. The Wander is a great read. It uses something we call the active voice. It's a hell of a lot of fun. You feel like you're right there experiencing it with our wanderer. And follow our route of the journey on our website at wandererbook.com. I spend the last couple days of our week-long tent rental just resting up at the campsite, several naps a day. My body is barely of use to me. I can truly say that mountain kicked my ass. Now it's the end of the week, and it's time to pack up and get moving. Roger carries the heavy canvas tent and wooden supports hoisted over his back. Richard and I carry the 3 packs between us. In town, we drop off the tent, then head to the bus stop. My right ankle is largely swollen as I walk along with a pronounced limp. We purchase tickets and board a bus towards the main road. What a wonderful week in Pahalgam. Just to cook at the campsite next to the raging river was a joy, and to look around at all the green wooded mountains that engulfed us was pure ecstasy.